from J. Jermaine Bay of Elodian Morris Pradium, Ante, Colorado. The acronym is AMPAC, and I'm Chief Judge of Consular Court. Today is Class 176. Class 176. What do we learn in Class 175? Well, as the Moors know that the Empire of Morocco suffered from a coup d'etat. And a coup d'etat creates what's commonly known as a stroke of the state. And anytime you have a stroke, that means you've been paralyzed temporarily. And that's what happened to the empire. While it was paralyzed, we had to immediately get into what? Rehabilitation. Through that rehabilitation, we started to do what? We started to enforce the Constitution of the Empire of Morocco. You see, in Class 175, it opened up talking about the Charter of the United Nations. Well, why would we talk about the Charter of the United Nations in the middle of a coup d'etat? You see, you must understand that under Article 73 of the Charter of the United Nations, it said that what? Colonized people have to have their self-determination and operate through their self-governance of their government. And we all know that the colonists and obstructionists will do everything they can to try to undermine what? The varying stages of advancement of the Empire of Morocco as a country, and to try to stop what? The progress of the Moorish government. You see, when we start to enforce Article 73 of the Charter of the United Nations to show the United Nations that the Empire of Morocco knows how to enforce both international law and what? Moroccan law. And what was the Moroccan law that we had to enforce through the Empire of Morocco? It was our Constitution. Why? Because the Constitution is paramount. It's the first law that the Moors have to abide by. So within our Constitution, Empire of Morocco, it set forth a reform, an obligation of application for the House members to set up any process or due process against a sitting head of state, i.e. the Sultan. For what? For improper conduct. For what? High crimes. So Class 175 showed all the steps that the Empire of Morocco did to enforce its own constitution. You see, we have to impress upon the United Nations that we knew how to deal with a coup d'etat, a domestic internal dispute. You see, what I've learned about the Moors is this. The Moors, for decades and for over 100 years, the only thing the Moors have been studying is how to enforce the Constitution of the United States against what they commonly call the Europeans. But see, the Moors did not study their own constitution on how to enforce laws against each other. You see, when you want to uplift fallen humanity, what you're saying is the Moors are willing to come under an organized jural society. And what does jural mean? It means laws of the state. And everybody that's a national of said state must abide by the law. And the first law is what? The Constitution. And therefore, unfortunately, the head of state, the previous sultan that was impeached, violated the Constitution. But yet the House members maintain their fiduciary responsibility to their office to enforce the Constitution for any violations that the head of state did to breach the Constitution. You see, for the first time in the Moors' last decades or hundreds of years, for the first time in our history, the Moors have used a constitution of the state to adjudicate. And see, what I learned about the Moors did not want to put together a government because Moors do not want to be governed. So they're struggling when they come in and they pledge allegiance to the Constitution. They're really not serious. Until the law starts to be binding, then they find out the law is serious with the Constitution. After that, they want to do what? They want to quit and run away. Well, we have no problem with that, but just understand. The Constitution of Empire of Morocco is paramount. It's the first law that everybody will abide by if, in fact, you're going to be recognized as a Moroccan national, because nobody is above the law. The judges are not above the law. The legislature is not above the law. The executive branch is not above the law, and neither is the head of state. No one is above who? Our political mother, which is our Constitution. And she will be respected by all. So in class 175, we learned that the previous sultan was impeached by what? A court order of the High Court. Chief Justice Dominique L. delivered the ruling and the sentencing for the previous sultan to be removed for high crimes. Now, why did I share that with you? Because the United Nations is watching the Moors. You see, we declared our independence in May of 2024. Now, the United Nations and the world is standing back saying, oh, okay. Oh, you declared your independence? Oh, Moors want to self-govern? Okay, prove it. You see, what I learned about the Moors only talked about enforcing treaties against the Europeans. But they never really talked about enforcing the laws against their own fellow Moors. And see, the United Nations is watching the Moors. Are these Moors going to enforce their constitution against each other? And that was the litmus test. Because they already know the Moors have been trying to enforce their treaties for decades. But were the Moors trying to enforce a law against each other? And the answer was what? No. Now the United Nations has been put on full notice that the Empire of Morocco's constitution is binding on the Moroccans, and the House members will enforce the constitution. The executive branch will enforce the constitution, and the judicial branch will enforce the constitution. Against who? Their own fellow constituents and colleagues, i.e. Moroccan nationals. You see, you must understand justice when the Moors say love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Did you really believe in justice as a two-way street? Or is justice just a one-way street that you only want to make binding on the white man? See, you didn't want it binding on the Moroccan. This is what I'm learning about the Moors. You think justice is a one-way street towards the European. But you don't want to be a two-way street where justice is binding on the Moor as well. United Nations is watching. And now they know that the Moors, the Moroccan nationals who pledged their allegiance to the Constitution of the Empire of Morocco, is willing to enforce the Constitution, treaties, and the International Charter of the United Nations. We're ready to self-govern. And that's really very important when you're dealing with decolonization. What is the real question of decolonization? What does that mean to decolonize? That means you want to do what? You want to remove the colonists' what? Laws and courts. If you want to remove the United States of America's laws and courts from over the people, then what laws and courts do the people have to maintain an organized dual society? You see, when you're trying to decolonize through the Constitution, you must do what? Enforce your own Constitution on your own nationals. So we have impressed upon the United Nations that we're willing to do that, just as much as we're willing to enforce the treaties against the 12 signatory powers of the Act Algeciras of 1906. And for example, one of the 12 signatory powers is who? The United States of America. So hopefully the Moors learned something from class 175. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch it, because it's about law. And Moors keep saying love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, but you don't want to actually enforce justice unless you want to make it binding on white people. Wrong answer. Justice is a two-way street. As long as you stay within the legal framework of Moroccan law, you'll be okay. If not, you will be adjudicated. That must be understood. The Moors will be governed. There will be no what? Anarchy amongst Moors. And this is the problem amongst the Moors. The Moors don't want the black man to tell them what to do. The Moors don't want the white man to tell them what to do. And the Moors don't want the Moroccan to tell them what to do. This is the problem. want to run around like what? Taliban Moors. Those days are over. That must be understood. Moors keep saying they want to uplift fallen humanity, but they don't want to abide by laws. So I'm trying to tell all the Moors right now, the Moors who are not abiding by the laws of the United States and the several Union states, please understand, when you pledge your allegiance to Empire Morocco, you shall abide by the laws of the empire. Please don't bring that negative energy over to the empire, because you've gotten used to not abiding by the laws of the United States. If you think you're going to come to Empire Morocco and not abide by the laws of Morocco, wrong answer. Please, boys, let's be noble, all right? Let's get to the class. All right, as the Moors know, I always open up with the Constitution. Why? Because the Constitution is paramount. It is first. It's the first law. The Constitution rises above the executive branch. The Constitution rises above the legislative branch. The Constitution rises above the judicial branch. And the Constitution rises above the head of state, i.e. of the Sultan. No one is above our mother. All constitutions are female in character. All national flags are female in character. Our land is female in character. It is Mother Earth. It's our mother territory. Everything belongs to our mother. And nobody's going to disrespect her. We all have an obligation to uplift her. And in return, she'll uplift us. Let's continue. All right. As the Moors know, all the Moors will need an internal constitution for each of the small territories, right? As an example, the Moors of Wyoming will need an internal constitution, just like AMPAC as an acronym has an internal constitution, and all internal constitutions will come under our mother constitution of the Empire of Morocco. We will all pledge allegiance to the Empire of Morocco's constitution, all right? We must all come back home, because home is where your mother is. Listen. All right. So as the Moors know, this is the flag of the Empire of Morocco. It's a Circle 7 flag. We got the seal of the Empire of Morocco, right, for our country. Then, if you want to learn more, you can go to the website. It's empireofmoroccogov.com, or you go to eomgov.com, okay? All right. So when you go to the website, you see the seal in the far left corner, Empire of Morocco. You also see the flag, right? We made some changes to the website, as you can see. We've got the flag of the Empire of Morocco waving in the air. Now, it's important to understand the United Nations will see this flag on our website. It's important from a visual perspective and a psychological perspective to allow the world to start to see our flag flying from a pole, a flagpole. It's important for Moors to start to see the flag flying. You want the 193 nations that are members of the United Nations to start seeing the visual of our flag flying, because it's going to be fully manifested that flag will be flying at the United Nations one day. So everybody might as well start seeing it now. That's the website. So when you go to the website, you'll see it flying. I think it will continuously fly like that for like an hour. If it stops, if it freezes, then just simply refresh your screen. Okay? Listen. All right, Moors. As I told the Moors, we start talking about taxes more often, right? Because it's time to start to pick up where we left off. Before the coup d'etat, we were trying to get in and start talking about taxes, right? It's important for the Moors to understand that the United Nations Charter under Article 73 talks about what? Economic and social affairs of the state on behalf of we the people who have been colonized, right? So what's the sequential order that Article 73 puts it in? First it says what? Political reforms, right? You have to establish your political reform, which is the Moors have to do what? They have to have a political tie to the constitution of the Empire of Morocco first. After that, then you may be entitled to what? Economic reforms and what? Social reforms. So it's political first, economics, because economics is us what? Taking what? Revenue for the state. And that revenue now takes care of what? The social reforms of the people. But there'll never be social reforms without the economic reforms. There'll never be economic reforms without Moors pledging their allegiance to the Empire of Morocco. That must be understood. You must do things in sequential order in order for us to take care of the Moors, financially speaking. Listen. So this banner says, decolonization yields reparations in the form of taxation. Listen, we're going to go a little deeper. A little deeper. Okay, what do I have up here? Okay. Now, obviously this is AI generated. It's not a real check, but this is what it was similar. This will be a similar look of the United States of America paying the Empire of Morocco for taxes, right? Because we'll learn today a little bit more about the United States owes the Empire of Morocco. I'll show an example through a treaty, all right, that the United States of America signed and agreed to pay taxes. So this will be like an example, right? Like the United States Treasury, right? Because they're overseeing like a trust, right? But who's the check paid out to? Is what? The Empire of Morocco, the country. The check is not payable directly to an individual Moor. The check is not payable to an individual group of Moors. The check is only payable to our mother, which is the country. That must be understood. So you must understand, the United States of America will write the check to the Empire of Morocco. These are two legal personalities. Listen to me. The United States of America, as a country, as a state, will write a check to what? The Empire of Morocco. Then from there, these two countries, listen to me. These two countries do what? They have what representing them? A government. So the government of the United States will write a check on behalf of the United States of America over to the Empire of Morocco as an entity. That money will trickle down to what? The government. And the government will then do what? Send out distribution checks to who? The nationals of the Empire of Morocco for social reforms. To try to help the Moors to uplift fallen humanity. But you must understand the check is not written out to Moors. It's not written to tribes. It's not written to temples or churches or organizations. It's written out to the country name, Empire of Morocco. Listen, let's take it to the board. What do I have up here? It says, decolonization of the Empire of Morocco yields reparations in the form of taxation. Let's read it again. Decolonization of the Empire of Morocco yields reparations in the form of taxation. But do you see how I have it numbered? Decolonization 1, reparations 2, taxation 3. You see that? Mm-hmm. Sequential order. You see, you'll never collect taxes as a country if in fact you cannot apply for the reparations, because reparations comes after you've decolonized. So decolonization does what? Decolonization of the Empire of Morocco yields, meaning it results in what? Reparations. But reparations means to repair. We're talking about the word reparations today. So to repair reparations in the form of taxation. So instead of reparations, what will be the reparation? The taxation that the United States of America, as an example, owes what? The Empire of Morocco. We'll never collect the taxes if the Empire of Morocco doesn't decolonize. We must rise, and we must be at varying stages of advancement, and this is why the capitalists and who? The obstructionist is trying to stop us from decolonizing, i.e. trying to stop us from enforcing our Constitution. They're trying to set up roadblocks to keep us from what, ultimately? The taxation. So the Moors want taxation, i.e. they want what? A check. Then the Moors have to help us to decolonize so we can set up the reparations to repair a wrong through the form of taxation. Listen. There are 5 forms of reparations. 5. Now, in international law, they'll say it's 4, but for the purpose of today's class, I'll say it's 5. You'll find out why in just a moment. There are 5 forms of reparations. Listen. Number 1, there's a word called restitution, right? Restitution that comes under the word what? Reparations. Pay attention. The word reparations is broke down into 4 to 5 different classifications. I'll say it again. The word reparations is broke down into 4 to 5 forms. So everybody's caught up in this word reparations, but more to know what the hell they was talking about, and neither does black people. But you'll learn today these different forms. Listen. Number 1, restitution. Let's take it from the top. There are 5 forms of reparations. What are the 5 forms? Okay, 1, restitution. Restitution means what? To reestablish, to re-establish the situation which existed prior to the wrongful act. So people always say, well, we get reparations because of slavery. What you're saying, there was a wrongful act, and you want some reparations, means you want to repair a wrongful act. Well, a part of reparation, you can say, oh, so you're seeking restitution, meaning you want to go back and restore it? Well, you can't restore slavery because you can't go back to Dred Scott. You can't put Dred Scott back in his original status. That was 1856, Dred Scott versus Sanders. So restitution means try to restore something back to its original form. Let me give you an example. Let's say a thief steals your car. If this thief is found with the car, or if the person wants to return the car, what are they doing? They're restoring. They're bringing it back to the original status. They brought you back your car and keys. So now you've been made what? Whole. Almost like the car was never what? Stolen in the first place. That's what restitution means. It means just simply to restore something back to its original what? Condition. Number 2, compensation. Compensation comes under the word reparations. So reparation also means compensation. What is compensation? Pay for damages. So let's say the car was returned, but the car got damages. Well, now you have to pay the damages because you couldn't give me back my car in its original status, but the car got damaged. So you got to pay for damages. That's called compensation. Now I need some what? I need some money to put my car back in its original status. Listen. Then number 3, satisfaction. Reparations has another word called satisfaction. What is satisfaction? Well, let's say somebody just wants to say a formal apology. Say, look, man, I stole your car, but I brought it back. I had a second thought about it. And they gave you a formal apology. They gave you your keys. No harm, no foul. And that's what happens between states. Sometimes states, countries get the beefing, and they just issue a formal apology. You know how they always telling Great Britain, the islanders tell Great Britain, we need you to apologize for slavery. See, the apology. It's formal though. What does it mean by formal? Formal means it comes from who? Head of state, Minister of Foreign Affairs, etc. It's formal apology. Number 4, still talking reparations. Another form of reparations is what? Interest. Listen. Interest is what? The penalty for late pay. My words. So therefore, let's say another country is found guilty of violating your state rights. One country's violated another country. Let's say it's like Israel violating Palestine. When Palestine sues and they sue for a certain amount, that's called what? The principal. But Palestine can say on top of that, we want what? Interest. Because Palestine, let's say they're awarded, right? Let's say they're awarded through the ICJ a certain amount of money. But in order to get Israel, as an example, what's commonly known as what? An incentive. Israel say, okay, we got to pay a penalty plus what? Interest. They don't want the interest to accrue and build up. So you need to pay that principal as soon as possible, you see? So countries can assess interest on top of the principal. That's a form of reparations. Last but not least, number 5, taxes. So our Moorish treaties said the Empire of Morocco is owed taxes. Taxes such as residual payments. So taxes, annual taxes are considered residual payments. Is residual revenue that the Empire of Morocco will receive for the next 100 years, 1,000 years. That comes under a form of reparations because step number 5, keep it in mind, international law recognizes 4 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. But I added a 5th because the Moors owe taxes. But the taxes is a form of reparations as well because the taxes almost fall under restitution. Watch. Restitution says to reestablish the situation which existed prior. So the United States of America signed contracts that said they will pay taxes. Well, they need to reestablish paying the taxes, don't they? Yes. So the restitution is really the taxation that they have to go back prior to 1956 or starting at 1956 on up to the year 2025, because right now we're in November 2025. They owe taxes in arrears, and they owe taxes in what? Futures. So they have to go back and reestablish. Reestablish what? The treaties and start to pay their taxes again. So when you hear people talking about reparations, you say, well, what part of reparations are you talking about? You say, you know, reparations is broke down into 4 or 5 subparts. So reparations can mean what? Restitution. Reparations can mean compensation. Reparations can mean satisfaction. Reparations can mean interest. And reparations can mean taxes. You see that? How many people do that? Not many. This is why AMPAC study session is an educational platform to teach people who've been what? Disenfranchised. That the United States of America has always owed the Moors taxes, and they did not want you to know this, and you've been running around here trying to get reparations. You don't even know that reparations is payable from one state to another. But the Moors never reestablished our own self. Listen to me. What's the most important thing up here? Listen to me. What's the most important thing on the board? What's step 1? None of this matters if you don't decolonize. How do you decolonize? Well, you have to do what? You have to get the Empire of Morocco out of the shallow grave. That's what decolonization means. That's number 1, your country. And number 2, what? The people have to be recognized as Moroccans again. Both the country and the people. Listen, this is Resolution 1514 of the United Nations. Resolution 1514 of December 14, 1960. It's called the Declaration on the Grant of Independence to colonial countries and peoples. So you have to get the country out the shallow grave through decolonization and decolonize to help the people to rise up with the country. And once you uplift the country and people, now the people have to do what? Abide by the organized jural society of their constitution, which is what? The fundamental first laws of the people. And if the people don't want to abide by the laws of the country, then you have no country. Therefore, you get no taxation. Because there's no reparations, because the first thing the Moors have to do is repair our own wrong. Listen to me. The Moors have to repair their own self-inflicted, self-sabotage status because they were running around calling themselves Negroes, blacks, coloreds, Moorish Americans, Puerto Rican, Indian, Hebrew Israelite, you name it. Everything but what? Moroccan. So the first reparations, the first repair, we have to repair our own psychology, our own head. We suffer from cognitive dissonance. We suffer from amnesia. Therefore, this whole board means absolutely nothing if we didn't even decolonize and rise to our country as Moroccan people. Therefore, step one. 1, 2, 3. It's just that easy. But if the Moors are not willing to abide by their own constitution, then we'll never give reparations or taxation. That must be understood. Listen, let's talk about the word reparations, shall we? All right. So up here, I have a breakdown, right? Because words, when you pronounce words, they're broke down into syllables, right? But within the words, they're trying to express something to you. Moors must become a wordsmith. Watch this. Reparations after colonization. So the Moors want reparations, but you can't give reparations till after colonization. You have to decolonize first. Number 2, how do you pronounce the word reparations? Is what? Reparation. Reparation. Okay, let's look at the interpretation of that breakdown. Watch this. It is reparation. Right? Different interpretation. Right here, number 4. Look, reparation. Nation. You want to repar nation. Number 5, you want to repair a nation. So you take what? Look what I did. I added an N. I took the N from up here. I added an N in the word. There's no N in reparations in the middle. But I added here in the separation, repair nation. I added an N. So repair a nation, reparations is about repairing a nation after it's been wrongfully what? Subjugated by different types of violations. So you hear black people run around talking about, we want reparations. Okay, for your nation, i.e. your state. Well, you just want reparations for your own individual pocket, but ain't gonna do nothing for our mother, which is the empire of Morocco. You just want it for you. If it goes to the state, then the state can take care of all of us. You don't know nothing about reparations, because reparations comes through your mother, and your mother takes care of her children. Listen. Number 6. How do you repair a nation? That's a good question. Listen. All right. Similar to what we had on the board. Check it out. Number 7. It says reparations. Right? Let's read number 6 again. How do you repair a nation? I.e., how do you repair your what? Your nation state. Number 7, reparations, restitution, compensation, satisfaction, and interest via decolonization. If you don't decolonize, then there will be no reparations, restitution, compensation, satisfaction, or interest. All of that is via decolonization of your nation, i.e. of your nation state. Listen. So I got these bulletin points. Check it out. We're talking about reparations. We're talking about money. The Moors are owed money. Bulletin points. Decolonization yields reparations and taxes. But keep in mind, reparations broke down to what? 4 forms. 4 forms. What's the 4 forms? Restitution, compensation, satisfaction, and interest. I added the word taxes. Number 5. Listen. So Moors can do what? Moors can get what? A one-time compensation of reparations, which is a check, principal check, with interest, or should Moors get residual lifetime annual taxation? Listen to me. Multiple choice. Because it broke down into forms. Which form does the Moors want? Well, your treaties say you're entitled to taxes. So if you go with the treaty language, because treaty is supreme law of the land, therefore the treaty language is supreme language of a contract. Therefore the Moors owe what? Taxes, which means we would end up with residual lifetime annual taxes, because the lifetime is a lifetime of your family tree. You'll receive taxes today. Your children get them tomorrow. Your children's children's children will still get the lifetime taxation of your country. But instead, people have been running around trying to get reparations on a one-time principal check like it's a lottery ticket. Never understanding what it meant to have residual lifetime annual taxation. Today, I will show you an example of how much money the United States of America owes the Moors on an annual basis. Listen, what do I have up here? Okay, note from the top.
Responsibility of states for internationally wrongful acts, 2001.
All right, Paul. So this is the United Nations resolution. Came out in 2001. It talks about reparations. But the question is, who pays the reparations and who is the payment payable to? We're talking reparations. Listen. All right, let's read the first 4. As you can see, it's United Nations, right? United Nations. Okay, let's read these first 4 articles so you start getting a basic fundamental understanding of how to enforce the fact that you can sue the United States of America for violating the Empire of Morocco, or you can sue because the United States of America is not abiding by the Charter of the United Nations or our treaties. It's called a wrongful act. What's the wrongful act? You're violating international law and what? Treaties. Because you're violating what? Contracts. Note from the top.
Responsibility of states for internationally wrongful acts. Part 1, the internationally wrongful act of a state. Charter or Chapter 1, General Principles. Article 1, responsibility of a state for its internationally wrongful acts. Every internationally wrongful act of a state entails the international responsibility of that state. Article 2. Elements of an internationally wrongful act of a state. There is an internationally wrongful act of a state when conduct consisting of an action or omission, A, is attributable to the state under international law, and B, constitutes a breach of an international obligation of the state. Article 3, characterization of an act of a state as internationally wrongful. The characterization of an act of a state is internationally wrongful is governed by international law. Such characterization is not affected by the characterization of the same act as lawful by internal law. Chapter 2, attribution of conduct to a state. Article 4, conduct of organs of a state. 1. The conduct of any state organ shall be considered an act of that state under international law, whether the organ exercises legislative, executive, judicial, or any other functions. Whatever position it holds in the organization of the state, and whatever its character as an organ of the central government or of a territorial unit of the state. 2. An organ includes any person or entity which has that status in accordance with the internal law of the state.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so what have we learned thus far, right? Pay attention. Therefore, this is, where's the title? Okay, it's the responsibility, gotta pay attention, it's the responsibility of states for internationally wrongful acts. So international law is putting the onus on who? The state. But there's all types of states. There's the external state. For an example, you got the United States of America. And then you got the 50 union states, which commonly known as internal states, such as Texas. So when international law, legal forms come out, right, legal context, they say they put the responsibility on who? The state. Well, which state? It's the external state, such as the United States of America. They put the onus directly on the United States of America for anything that the state of Texas does. 2 or more. Listen. Let's go to Article 4. This is very important for Moors to understand. If the Moors want to collect taxes, we must understand what is our legal argument. You can say there's a violation, but you got to say, okay, what was the violation? What was the law that supports what? Your accusation. So you have to have what? Law, fact, meaning the proof, right? Have a law to support you, the fact, which is the evidence, and sometimes case law. And obviously all that's bundled under procedure. So when you say, well, somebody violated my rights, you say, okay, well, what's the remedy? Well, here's the remedy in law. It identifies the parties. In court, they say you must point out the party that wronged you, right? Everybody's entitled to face their accuser, etc. Listen. Chapter 2, attribution of conduct of a state. Article 4, conduct of organs of the state. That's very important. Pay attention, Morris. Now we're about to get the internal union states in trouble. Because, as an example, Texas is considered an organ of what? Of the state. So what's the state? The United States of America. Pay attention. Okay. Brother Dre from the top.
Responsibility of states for internationally wrongful acts, 2001. Number 1, the responsible state, United States of America. 2, organ of the USA, United States Federal Corporation. 3, organ of the USA, state of Texas. 4, organ of the USA, city of Houston. 5, organ of the USA, county of Harris. 6, organ of the USA, Woodlands Township. 7, organ of the USA, executive, legislative, and judicial officials, i.e. all elected and appointed officials and employees.
All right, thank you very much. So from the top, it says, okay, who's the responsibility, right? Because we're talking about the responsibility of states for internationally wrongful acts came out in 2001. Number 1, as an example, what's an example of the responsible state? So in this example, it'd be the responsible state is who? United States of America. Well, how do we know it's United States of America? Because that's the name on the treaties and on the Charter of the United Nations. That's what you call the de jure name. Therefore, who's responsible? Who's responsible? The United States of America for any wrongful acts of violating the Moroccans' rights. Listen. So if the United States of America, acronym USA, is the responsible state, then underneath that, watch this. What's an organ? Or the organ of what? The USA will be considered, as an example, the United States Federal Corporation, District of Columbia, 10 miles squared. So the name United States is an organ of what? United States of America. Therefore, the United States Federal Corporation, if they do something to infringe against the Moroccans' rights, then guess who gets blamed? The United States of America is the responsible state. Listen, what's another organ? As an example, organ, right, of the United States of America would be what? As an example, state of Texas. Anything the state of Texas does against a Moroccan is the responsibility of who? The United States of America. You see that? Listen, number 4. Reads as follows. Organ of the United States of America, for example, is the city of Houston. Anything the city of Houston does to violate a Moroccan's rights is now the responsibility of who? The United States of America is the responsible state. Listen, number 5. What's another organ? Or the organ of the United States of America, for example, would be the county of Harris, which is near Houston, right? So now if Harris County does something to a Moroccan to violate their rights, now it becomes the responsibility of the United States of America to write the check or deal with the wrongful act. Let's talk about another organ as an example. Number 6, organ of the United States of America would be like Woodlands Township, which is near Houston. So townships, they're municipal organizations, right? They're municipalities, right? Because all these are municipalities such as townships, counties, cities, right? These are what you call municipal organizations, right? Anything Woodlands Township does to violate a Moroccan's rights is the responsibility of the United States of America as an organ. Number 7, what's another organ as an example? Organ of the United States of America would be what? Executive, legislative, and judicial officials, i.e., as in all elected, all appointed, and all officials and all employees of the state of Texas. All elected, all appointed, all officials, and all employees of what? The United States. Organs are also what? All elected, appointed, officials, employees of what? United States of America. So every time you see the word organ, the organ is what you call a generic word. It encompasses everybody and everything that's an official or employee of a government. So whether it's the state of Texas versus defendant, guess what? That's an organ. State of Texas is an organ. If it's Houston, Township, Harris County, any of these officials, the executive, legislative, judicial branch, if they're violating Moroccans' rights, it's the responsibility of the United States of America that's going to be held responsible. It's like a parent has to show up to the elementary school. Your child punched such and such in the face. Guess who's responsible? Both the child who gets suspended and the parent. It's called vicarious liabilities. The parent always has liabilities for a minor. So in this example, who's the parent? United States of America. Who's their child? Who's the minor for them? It's the United States, state of Texas, city of Houston, county of Harris, Woodland Townships, and all the executive, legislative, and judicial officials are all minors. They're all the children of the United States of America. So when the children get in trouble and do something against Moroccans, guess what? Their parent gets in trouble too. You see? Okay, let's go back to international law. When we're talking reparations, how do the lawyers collect the taxation? Well, first you have to understand your legal arguments. how can you go and make a legal claim? Guess what? A country, i.e. what? A state. Not an individual more. Okay, listen. So chapter 2 is about attribution of conduct to a state. So the state is responsible for the conduct of its what? Organs. Listen, number one, the conduct of any state, in this example, United States of America. So the conduct of any state, such as the United States of America, and its organs shall be considered an act of the United States of America under international law. Whether the organ exercises legislative, executive, judicial, or any other functions, whatever position it holds in the organization of the state, and whatever its character as an organ of the central government or of a territorial unit of the state. What's a territorial unit? State of Texas. What's a territorial unit? City and county of Houston. You see? Territorial unit, i.e. districts, cities, townships, municipalities are territorial units of what? The state. They're all responsible for their wrongful acts they do to Moroccan nationals and any violation they do against the Empire of Morocco as a country. Listen. Section 2 of Article 4. An organ includes any person or any entity which has the status in accordance with the internal law of the state. So if the United States of America recognizes its internal laws, and its internal laws recognizes the state of Texas, because the United States Constitution recognizes the state of Texas Constitution as one of their own. And the state of Texas Constitution recognizes all of its internal municipal organizations, all of its cities, counties, and townships, and it recognizes all of its officials. So I'll read it again. Article 4, Section 2, an organ, which can be artificial persons and human persons. An organ includes any person or any entity which has the status in accordance with the internal law of the state. Now listen, let's jump down to reparations. Now that we know who's responsible. The United States is responsible for all its internal organs. Now watch. Okay? Now we're going to come down to chapter 1. Okay? Now as you can see right off the top, look what it's talking about already. Let me show the Moors. See that? Reparations. You're already talking about reparations. Okay? That's Article 31. But let's start at let's start at part 2. Brother Dre, from the top.
Part 2, content of the international responsibility of the state. Chapter 1, general principles. Article 28, legal consequences of an internationally wrongful act. The international responsibility of a state, which is entailed by an internationally wrongful act in accordance with the provisions of Part 1, involves legal consequences as set out in this part. Article 29, continued duty of performance. The legal consequences of an internationally wrongful act under this part do not affect the continued duty of the responsible state to perform the obligation breached. Article 30, cessation and non-repetition. The state responsible for the internationally wrongful act is under an obligation, A, to cease that act if it is continuing, B, to offer appropriate assurances and guarantees of a non-repetition if circumstances so require. Article 31, reparation. 1, the responsible state is under an obligation to make full reparation for the injury caused by the internationally wrongful act. 2, injury includes any damage, whether material or moral, caused by the internationally wrongful act of a state. Article 32, irrelevance of internal law. The responsible state may not rely on the provisions of its internal law as justification for failure to comply with its obligation under this part.
Pause. Read Article 32 again.
Article 32, irrelevance of internal law. The responsible state may not rely on the provisions of its internal law as justification for failure to comply with its obligations under this part. Article 33, scope of international obligations set out in this part. 1. The obligations of the responsible state set out in this part may be owed to another state, to several states, or to the international community as a whole, depending in particular on the character and content of the international obligation and on the circumstances of the breach.
Pause. Read section 1 again.
Article 33, scope of international obligations set out in this part. Section 1. The obligations of the responsible state set out in this part may be owed to another state, to several states, or to the international community as a whole, depending in particular on the character and content of the international obligation and on the circumstances of the breach.
Pause. I'll read it. Question. Watch this. Article 33, Section 1. The obligations of the responsible state set out in this part may be owed to another state, to several states, or to the international community as a whole. Pause. Did it say it's payable directly to an individual more or individual anybody? No. Did it say it's payable to your organization? Is it payable to your club? Is it payable to your church? No. Reparations is from one state to another because it's a state on state what? Dispute. And black people and Moorish Americans and everybody else been trying to get reparations, but you've been stateless. You didn't read the instructions. It's been out since 2001. Listen. Article 33. The obligations of the responsible state. So who's the responsible state? In this example is United States of America. Set out in this part may be owed to another state. The other state would be who? The Empire of Morocco. Brother Dre, part 2.
2. This part is without prejudice to any right arising from the international responsibility of a state which may accrue directly to any person or entity other than a state.
Read again.
Part number 2. This part is without prejudice to any right arising from the international responsibility of a state which may accrue directly to any person or entity other than a state.
All right, so it can't prejudice the right for a person to go to a state to try to get the state to represent them to get payment. But if you want to sue a state, states are sovereign. You cannot, an individual cannot sue another foreign state. Your state, let's say you're the national, right, of your state. You have to come to your state and tell your state, just say, state, Germany did something to violate me. So can you please, Mr., or should I say Mrs. State in Morocco, bring a suit against Germany because Germany's officials did something to me. But an individual Moor can't sue Germany. But the Empire of Morocco can sue Germany on behalf of its national. Listen. We were stateless as Moors. We didn't know what the hell we was talking about. Now we have the Empire of Morocco. We have a country. We have a state. Now we can start to sue the United States of America if they perform a wrongful act. Who sues the United States of America? The Empire of Morocco. Because it represents we, the Moroccans. Listen. Brother Dre.
Chapter 2, Reparation for Injury. Article 34, Forms of Reparation. Full reparation for the injury caused by the internationally wrongful act shall take the form of restitution, compensation, and satisfaction, either singly or in combination in accordance with the provisions of this chapter.
Pause. Take it from the top again.
Article 34, Forms of Reparation.
Pause. Read it again.
Article 34, Forms of Reparation.
Pause. Read it again.
Article 34, Forms of Reparation.
See that? Reparations is broke down into several forms. Listen from the top.
Article 34, Forms of Reparation. Full reparation for the injury caused by the internationally wrongful act shall take the form of restitution, compensation, and satisfaction, either singly or in combination in accordance with the provisions of this chapter. Article 35, Restitution. A state responsible for an internationally wrongful act is under an obligation to make restitution, that is, to reestablish the situation which existed before the wrongful act was committed, provided to the extent that restitution, A, is not materially impossible, B, does not involve a burden out of all proportion to the benefit deriving from restitution instead of compensation.
Okay, Paul. So far, reparations comes in forms. In the first form they talked about was restitution. Okay, that was Article 35. Okay, let's move on to Article 36.
Article 36, Compensation. 1. The state responsible for an internationally wrongful act is under an obligation to compensate for the damage caused thereby, insofar as such damage is not made good by restitution. 2. The compensation shall cover any financially accessible damage, including loss of profits, insofar as it is established.
Okay, Paul. So, let's say, for example, what we consider like a wrongful act by another state. What if we found out that the United States has something to do with the coup d'etat that happened with the empire of Morocco? What if we get enough proof to prove that the United States was helping the dissenters who tried to undermine the empire? See, if we have the proof, we could then sue the United States of America for that wrongful act of being what? A co-conspirator in the coup d'etat. You see? This is the responsibility of states for internationally wrongful acts. You must understand your rights as a people and your right as what? A state. Your state has rights. And the people have rights. But who has the first right in law? The state. Because it's paramount. Listen. Okay, let's talk satisfaction, right? Article 37, Brother Dre.
Article 37, Satisfaction. 1. The state responsible for an internationally wrongful act is under an obligation to give satisfaction for the injury caused by that act, insofar as it cannot be made good by restitution or compensation. 2. Satisfaction may consist in an acknowledgement of the breach, an expression of regret, a formal apology, or another appropriate modality. 3. Satisfaction shall not be out of proportion to the injury and may not take a form humiliating to the responsible state.
All right. Number 38. Article 38.
Article 38, Interest. Number 1. Interest on any principal sum due under this chapter shall be payable when necessary in order to ensure full reparation. The interest rate and mode of calculation shall be set so as to achieve that result. 2. Interest runs from the date when the principal sum should have been paid until the date the obligation to pay is fulfilled.
All right. So these are the steps, right? So in the reparation, you got restitution, right? Let's go back up. Let's go back up. What did they say? You're entitled to what? Okay, chapter 2. Reparations for injury. Article 34, forms of reparation include what? Restitution, compensation, satisfaction, and interest. You see? Now, did it mention taxes? No, I added that. Right. Why? Why did I do that? Because that's a part of reparations. Because reparation means to do what? To repair a nation. What's a way that the United States of America can repair a wrong? Well, one of the wrongs is what? They haven't paid their taxes. So they can repair that wrong by starting to pay their taxes. And if they don't pay, guess what? That's an internationally wrongful act. So not only can they be sued for not paying their taxes, they got to pay a what? A restitution or compensation and interest for violating the law. And on top of that, they still have to pay what? Their taxes. You see? You must understand how to enforce your rights. What are your rights? It's the laws. It's not what you just think to come out of your mouth. See, you must understand, documentation beats conversation every day of the week. What is the documentation? It is what? The law. Listen, it's important for Morris to understand. All right. Now, why did we go through that exercise of understanding reparations? Well, reparations is tied to what? Decolonization. There is no reparations without decolonization. And there's no taxation without decolonization. So we say, okay, we have a right to decolonize. They say, well, says who? You say what? The Charter of the United Nations, what? Article what? 73 made it an obligation on all colonial states to assist the colonized people to do what? To rise, to emerge. To emerge as a sovereign and independent what? State. So it's the emergence of a state and the emergence of its people simultaneously. The Moors all these years been trying to do what? Emerge as a people without emerging with the state too. You see? Because it's what? You go back to Resolution 1514, listen. Resolution 1514 of 1960 is about Declaration on the Grant of Independence to colonial countries and colonial people that's been colonized and your country that's been colonized. You must do both. This is where the Moors faltered. Listen. So the Charter of the United Nations, which is law, international law, it's the rule of law. So it's the rule of international law. And what? Procedure. So law and procedure. So we go to Article 73, right? Let's go to Article 73. Article 73 now explains to the Moors that you're entitled now to start collecting what? Your taxes. And if the United States doesn't pay their taxes, then that's an internationally wrongful act, because the Moors are entitled to taxes because our treaties set forth the obligation. We'll talk about that. Okay? Note from the top.
Chapter 11, Declaration regarding non-self-governing territories. Article 73. Members of the United Nations which have or assume responsibilities for the administration of territories whose peoples have not yet attained a full measure of self-government recognize the principle that the interests of the inhabitants of these territories are paramount, and accept as a sacred trust the obligation to promote to the utmost within the system of international peace and security established by the present charter, the well-being of the inhabitants of those territories, and to this end.
All right, so the colonists, i.e. the capitalists and obstructionists, their obligation is to help the Moors to do what? Self-govern. Because the United States of America, as an example, as a member of the United Nations, which have or assume responsibility. The United States of America has assumed responsibility for the administration of territories whose Moroccan people have not yet attained a full measure of self-government, recognize the principle that the interests of the inhabitants of these territories are paramount, and accept as a sacred trust. So the United States of America had the Moors, Empire, Morocco, and Moroccan people in a trust status, right? And the United States of America had obligations to maintain the trust while the Moors were suffering from cognitive dissonance and amnesia. And now that we've declared our independence and Empire, Morocco, and Moroccans are enforcing the Moroccan Constitution through the Moorish government, now we're doing what? We're self-governing. Listen, pay attention, about to make a point regarding reparations. See, the United States of America is supposed to promote, they're supposed to promote to the utmost within the system of international peace and security established by the present charter. So the charter is establishing this law that the well-being of the inhabitants of these territories, and to this end. So listen, what's the responsibility of the United States? They're supposed to look out for our well-being until we declare our independence. Through our independence, we're supposed to start to self-govern. Through what? Your Constitution. But what is the United States is trying to stop? What are they trying to stop? Okay, Section A, note from the top.
A, to ensure with due respect for the culture of the peoples concerned and their political, economic, social, and educational advancement, their just treatment and their protection against abuses.
Pause right there. So the colonists and the obstructionists who are trying to stop the Empire Morocco through coup d'etats and anything else they can throw in as a monkey wrench are trying to stop what? What are the colonists and obstructionists trying to stop? They're trying to stop our political advancement. That way, if they stop our political advancement, the Moors can't collect their taxes through the economics. If the Moors can't collect the taxes, we can't take care of the Moroccans through our social reforms. Listen to this next part very closely. Article 73, Section 8 talks about an educational advancement. You see that? Let me read it again. Pay attention. From the top. To ensure with due respect for the culture of the peoples concerned, their political, economic, social, and educational advancement. Listen to me. How is it that the Moors haven't been advancing in order to decolonize? Well, they've been learning from what? AMPAC study session. Isn't that correct? So isn't AMPAC study session helping with the educational advancement? Counting today's class is 176 classes regarding what? The studies of international law, the Charter of the United Nations, and Moroccan law. What did I say in class number 1? I said, how did the Moors lose their land? They lost it with a penny. What did I tell Moors in AMPAC study session number 1? How do you get the land back? You get it back with what? A pen. What type of pen? The pen through who? The competent authority of the duly elected and appointed officials of what? The government of what? The state. So the only way we could get back our inheritance was through the state. So you must understand that the capitalists and who else? The obstructionists are going to try to stop AMPAC study session because AMPAC study session is what? An educational platform. So anybody you hear out there that's trying to undermine AMPAC study session, you just say, why are you trying to stop the educational advancement of the Moors? You see, you have to understand people have ulterior motives to stop the education of AMPAC study session. Moors have to start paying attention that the United States knows that education is lawful for the Moors to teach other Moors. But the United States knows that the #1 platform for Moors to learn international law and how to decolonize is what? AMPAC Media YouTube channel, commonly known as what? AMPAC Study Session, you see? So the United States, one of the ways they try to stop us to send who? To send a Negro to try to undermine AMPAC Study Session. Because you know the colonists, they're not going to do it themselves. Ain't nobody going to show up looking like Peter Pan to try to undermine the empire. No. They're always going to send an informant that looks like all of us. You got to understand what I'm saying here. I'm going to read it from the top. A, to ensure with due respect for the culture of the peoples concerned, their political, which is the Constitution, economic, the taxes, social, which now the taxes takes care of the people, but we need the education advancement. How the hell are you going to know about your political rights, and your tax rights, and your social rights if you ain't not even educated and informed about this? You must understand, AMPAC Study Session is under attack. Listen. Now, the United States of America is supposed to maintain just treatment and protections against abuses. Now, we're going to find out real soon if the United States is going to abide by this contract, because we're going to make sure the United States knows that if, in fact, they had something to do with the coup d'etat, that all those people who were directly involved with trying to overthrow the Empire Morocco, United States and Empire Morocco going to get together and deal with the dissenters. And guess who's supposed to help us to deal with them? The United States, because the United States is supposed to protect. You see that? To protect against abuses. We're going to put the United States to the test. Now, that's not to say they have something to do with it. Listen to what I'm saying. But if the United States signed this contract and said they was going to protect the Moors, as the Moors are at varying stages of advancement, then we're going to make sure the United States helps to protect empire-wise at what? Varying stages of advancement while the empire is trying to emerge as a sovereign and independent state with its people. Are you hearing what I'm saying? So we will be reaching out to the United States to see if they have something to do with it, or to make sure they help to protect the Empire Morocco from any other what? Abuses. If the United States knows that coup d'etats are happening, try to undermine the Empire Morocco, we need to know about that. Listen. This is about reparations. Pay attention. I'm building up. I'm building up to talk about the taxes. Nova Section B.
B, to develop self-government, to take due account of the political aspirations of the peoples, and to assist them in the progressive development of their free political institutions, according to the particular circumstances of each territory and its peoples and their varying stages of advancement.
Okay, watch this. B, Article 73, Section B as in Bravo. B, to develop self-government. Who's supposed to do that? The Moors are supposed to develop their self-government. Who's supposed to assist us? The United States as an example. Because they're what? The responsible state. Because they're maintaining what? The administration of the trust, you see? So them as trustees supposed to help the Empire Morocco. Listen. B, to develop self-government, to take due account of the political aspirations of the peoples. What people? The Empire Morocco and the Moroccans. And to assist them. The United States of America is supposed to assist us. And to assist them in the progressive development of their free political institutions according to the particular circumstances of each territory and its peoples and their varying stages of advancement. So the Moors are supposed to be at varying stages of advancement, and the capitalists don't want the Moors to be at varying stages of advancement. Why? Because the Moors continue moving forward, advancing with decolonization, guess what's up next? Reparations and taxation, which means the capitalists owe us a percentage in the form of taxes. Listen. What do I have up here? I'm talking reparations. The Moors want to know about taxation. We'll talk about it. Okay, I got the AMPAC Morocco's Constitution, the United States Constitution. I've got the Act out of Sarah, which is a multilateral treaty, and I've got the Charter of the United Nations. These are 1, 2, 3, 4 different instruments. 2 of these constitutions, a treaty, and a charter. Today we're talking about how the Moors enforce the Constitution in Morocco in order to enforce the treaties, because this is political. Listen, Article 73 talked about what? Must have political before economic, right? This is the political. What's next? Economic. So the Act out of Sarah talks about the taxes that's owed to the Moors. We'll talk about that. Listen, what I have up here. This is the Act out of Sarah of 1906. Right? It's a multilateral treaty. All right? It's a multilateral treaty. Who all signed it? Just a moment. Who all signed the treaty? From the top, Brother Dre.
Signatory powers of third states parties to the Multilateral Act of Algeciras of 1906 per intertemporal law. Number 1, United States of America. 2, France. 3, Great Britain. 4, Germany. 5, Netherlands. 6, Belgium. 7, all the Russias, the 15 states. 8, Austria-Hungary. 9, Sweden. 10, Italy. 11, Portugal. 12, Spain.
All right, so these are 12 signatory powers. Right now, obviously, we're using the United States of America as an example, but the reality is all these countries over here signed this multilateral treaty. Listen. All right, so we go back to the Act out of Sarah, okay? And the Act out of Sarah has some subsections, right? So it has 7 chapters, okay? Let's start with chapter 1. Know what chapter 1 is what?
1, a declaration relative to the organization of the police. 2, a regulation concerning the detection and repression of the contraband of arms. 3, an act of concession for a Moroccan bank, a Moroccan state bank. 4, a declaration concerning a better return of taxes and the creation of new revenues. 5, a regulation concerning the customs of the empire and the repression of fraud and smuggling. 6, a declaration relative to public services and public works.
Pause. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to drop down to chapter 4, a declaration concerning a better return of taxes and the creation of new revenues, i.e. the creation of new what? Taxes. So this treaty established taxes, but it also gave the empire the right to create new taxes anytime it wanted. Listen, we're talking taxes, we're talking contracts, treaty supreme law of the land, and the colonists, i.e. the obstructionists, did not want you to know this. Listen. All right, so what right now, in this treaty, chapter 4 says a declaration concerning a better return of taxes and the creation of new revenues. And as you can see, it's all about the Moors, right? You see the word Moorish. It's about the Moorish government collecting these taxes. Okay, we're going to jump down to, oh, by the way, you see it says Moorish? Let me show you that real quick. See it says Moorish right here? Over here in French it says the Moroccans. See that? So the Moorish, the Moors are what? Moroccans. Listen, let's go down to Article 65. We're going to jump over some articles and go straight to Article 65, okay? I'm going to show the Moors an example of what the United States owes the Moors in taxes. All right, Brother Dre, Article 65. Let's learn about the taxes the United States owes the Moors. I'm listening.
Article 65. The conference adheres to the proposition proposed by the Moorish delegation to create, with the assistance of the diplomatic body.
Pause. Read it again.
Article 65. The conference adheres to the proposition proposed by the Moorish delegation to create, with the assistance of the diplomatic body. A stamp tax on contracts and notarial acts brought before adults. B, a maximum transfer tax of 2% on sales of real estate.
Pause. Read Article 65 again.
Article 65. The conference adheres to the proposition proposed by the Moorish delegation to create, with the assistance of the diplomatic body.
Section B.
Section B, a maximum transfer tax of 2% on sales of real estate.
Pause right there. So the United States of America signed this contract and said the Moorish government is entitled to what? Section B, a maximum transfer tax of 2% on sales of real estate. What does that mean? Keep in mind now, treaty supreme law of the land, United States Constitution, Article 6, Clause 2, said that treaties are supreme law of the land, therefore the treaty language is supreme. It supersedes the United States laws, therefore the United States has to adhere to this treaty. This is why they didn't want the Moors, i.e. they didn't want black people to find out that they're Moors. Because once black people find out they're Moors, once you find out you're a Moor, you're supposed to know the word Moor is a short title for what? Moroccan. Therefore, the Moroccans are entitled through the Moroccan government to collect 2% on every sales transaction of real estate. This is in the treaty. It's what you call expressed and implied language that's binding on the United States of America. Now listen, let's look at a stat, right? No, from the top.
In 2024, there were approximately 4 million existing home transactions and about 683,000 new homes sold in the United States.
Pause. Read it again.
In the year of 2024, there were approximately 4 million existing home transactions and about 683 new homes sold in the United States.
Okay, I'll take it from here. So in 2024, there were approximately 4 million existing home transactions. Existing home transactions. And about 683,000 new homes sold in the United States. So they're making a distinction between what? Existing homes and new homes. So new homes what? New home builder, right? So the builder sells it to the first buyer. And then the first buyer turns around. Now that status of that home turns into what? Existing home, right? Existing home, because now you're reselling it. Okay, so if there's approximately 4 million houses sold in the United States in the year 2024, listen, we're not even talking about the new ones. We're only talking about existing. Listen, number from the top.
$415,200. Median selling price of existing homes. The median selling price of existing homes in the United States is currently $415,200, reflecting a 2.1% increase from the previous year.
Pause. Take it from the top.
$415,200. Median selling price of existing homes. The median selling price of existing homes in the United States is currently $415,200, reflecting a 2.1% increase from the previous year.
Pause. So therefore, the average sold home in the United States in 2024 was $415,000. Okay, well hold up. So if that's $415,000, and our treaty says, Article 65, Section B says a maximum transfer tax is 2% on the sale of the real estate. So the Moors supposed to get 2% on every sale of real estate. Let's drain from the top.
The Multilateral Act of Algeciras of 1960, Article 65, Section B, expressed in implied treaty language as follows. 4 million transactions of existing home sales in 2024. The average home sold was 415,200 in the United States. 415,200 times 2% equals 8,304 owed to the Empire of Morocco. 415,200 times 4 million equals 1,660,800,000,000, which is 1.7 trillion. 2% times 1,660,800,000,000 equals 33,216,000,000, which it comes out to 333.2 billion. 33,216,000,000 payable to the EOM in taxes annually.
All right, let me take it from the top. All right. Now keep in mind, this is just one provision in a treaty.
Yes.
Listen, this is why they didn't want black people to know their Moors. Listen, the United States of America signed a Multilateral Act of Algeciras in 1906. I do apologize. 1906. You go to Article 65, Section B, and it expressed an implied treaty language as follows. So listen to the breakdown. Out of this 4 million, right? 4 million transactions of existing home sales in 2024. That's how many houses sold in 2024. Existing homes, not new build. Bulletin point 2, the average home sold was 415,000 in the United States. Bulletin point 3, 415,000 times 2%, right? Because that's the tax, so 2% tax equals $8,304. That's how much every time the United States closes on a $415,000 house, they owe the Empire of Morocco 2%, which is $8,000. Owed to the Empire of Morocco. Listen. Next bulletin point. 415,000 times what? 4 million. So up here it said what? There was 4 million transactions. So let's say the average house was 415,000. You multiply that times the 4 million houses that sold for approximately 415,000. It comes out to what? How much was the total? 1,660,800,000,000, which is approximately $1.7 trillion. You see that? That's how much 415,000 times 4 million is. That's how much real estate was sold. $1,660,800,000 worth of existing home sales. Am I making sense? All right. Listen. So you take 2% tax that's owed to the empire times what? The 1 trillion, because that's the total amount. This is the total amount. Instead of doing one house, see, we did one house right here. Mm-hmm. We did one house times 2%. Now let's do the 4 million houses. That came out to what? 1,660,800,000, right? That was 2% times that comes out to what? 33,216,000,000. So it's 33.2 billion. Okay? So at the bottom, at the end of the day, what happened? How do we summarize this? How much the United States of America owe the Moors based in 2% tax? They owed the Moors in the year 2024, they owed the Empire of Morocco 33,216,000,000 in taxes. That's just selling on what? Existing homes. Well, watch. Listen. Watch this. Watch this. Okay. In red. So if existing home real estate sales was 33.2 billion annually, this is how much taxes the United States of America owed the Empire of Morocco, 33.2 billion in 2024. That was on existing homes, right? But guess what? You got new home real estate sales. We didn't even come up with that figure yet. There's what else? Commercial buildings. That's also sales. We didn't come up with that number. There's also land, which is real estate sales. We didn't come up with that number annually. So we would have added up everything, existing home sales, new home sales, commercial buildings, and land sales. You would have added all that up. It would have been way more than obviously $33 billion payable just in the year 2024. Now do you see why they want black people to know their mores? Now do you see why they kept black people in the projects and disenfranchised? Because the capitalists knew how much money these black people were owed because they know they ain't black, they're Moors. And Moors are entitled to taxes because the United States of America's capitalists signed a treaty that said that they're going to pay the Moors billions in taxes every year. And black people run around talking about, man, why do they keep picking on us? It's because they know how special you are. They understand the inheritance you're entitled to. This is why they don't want to give you SNAP. They don't want to give you food stamps. They don't want to give you Section 8. They don't want to give you a damn thing because they know you're entitled to $33 billion plus annually. That was just one line item I read from a treaty. Listen. That was just one line item I read. Look at A. Look at A. Stamp tax on contracts and notarial acts brought before the Abdul. So all these are taxes. Look at all these taxes. Look at this. Statistical and weighing tax. So they owe us a weighing tax. I could go down this list. It's just tax after tax after tax after tax after tax. This is why they kept you black, because they owe you tax. You have to come back and pledge allegiance to Empire Morocco and help us to what? Decolonize? Because we don't decolonize, we don't have access to the taxes. And if we don't have education to understand how to get the taxes, we'll never collect the taxes. You have to understand why AMPAC study session is under attack right now. You hear anybody out there attacking AMPAC study session on AMPAC, you got to understand what side are they working for? They're working for the capitalists to keep the capitalists from having to pay what? The taxes. Let me do this right here. That's for anybody who wants to take a screenshot of that. Okay. This is why they didn't want to tell you that you're more. Listen. Listen to me very carefully. Listen to me very carefully. This is the movie Django. In the movie Django, the Germans partnered up with the Moors. It was the German who gave the Moor the lone rifle. They partnered up, collaboration, to fight who? The capitalist, the colonist, and who? The obstructionist, Stephen Candy and Calvin Candy in the movie Django represents who? The capitalist, colonist, and the what? An obstructionist. They work together to undermine the Moors. But it's the obligation of Moors not only to work together, but we have to work with the other Europeans, which these are the good guys versus the bad guys. The problem is the good Moors and the good Europeans haven't been working together through the Empire of Morocco. They've been working together as Democrats of the United States. No! Europeans, i.e. Americans, Canadians, Germans, the French, the Scottish, anything you would think of as European American, have to work with the Moors through the Empire of Morocco to stop these sellout dirty Moors and these capitalist billionaires. Listen, I'm trying to make a point here, because the empire has been under attack. What are they fighting over? What were they trying to achieve in the movie Django? And what was these capitalist, colonists, obstructionists trying to prevent? Do you remember? Listen. Do you remember? It's this. They were trying to keep our mother from being free. They were trying to keep the woman from being free. Broomhilda represents the Empire of Morocco as the country. All countries are female in character. All flags are female in character. All constitutions are female in character. And the dirty Moor, along with this capitalist colonist holding Broomhilda hostage. They want to continue being the trustees over Broomhilda. And the dirty Moors are working with the capitalists to undermine who? Our mother. There she is. You see how Calvin Candy holding her face? And Stephen Candy is holding the back of her. They got her pinned down. Holding her hostage. Coercion. Obstructionist. Keep in mind, Calvin Candy is a capitalist. He had a slave plantation. You must understand what I'm saying here. This is our Constitution. Right here. It's our mother. They're trying to hold her down to keep us from having access. Listen. You see? Who's trying to save our Constitution? Who's trying to save the Empire of Morocco? Is the good Moors, who pledged their allegiance to be patriots, to save our mother. He was trying to save the woman. And this European decided to help the Moor. To save who? This German knew exactly what he was getting involved with to go and save a woman. This whole story is about a woman. And guess who was trying to stop these good men? It was these bad men, all fighting over a woman. It all has something to do with what? Money. And control, coercion, use of force, abuse. Why do I share that with you? I'm not wasting my time here showing you this. Listen, in class 175, this is the image of the thumbnail. The previous Sultan was impeached by the House of Legislators of 2025. The House members impeached the previous Sultan. For what? A coup d'etat. To undermine our mother, which was the Constitution, and to undermine the House members, which were women. It's class 175 thumbnail. Who was trying to undermine it? The capitalist and the obstructionist. Listen. And because of that, class 175, Justice Dominique L., the judge, through the court proceedings, found what? The defendant guilty. And once they found the defendant guilty, he was removed, i.e. impeached from the seat of the Sultan, and was replaced by another elected official who took the office of Sultan. Listen.
I, Chief Justice Dominique Hill, will be swearing in the Sultan of the Empire of Morocco. Kendon Bey, please step forward. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kendon Bey, do solemnly affirm
I, Kendon Bey, do solemnly affirm
that I will faithfully execute the office of the Sultan
that I will faithfully execute the office of the Sultan
of the Empire of Morocco
of the Empire of Morocco
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution of the Empire of Morocco.
the Constitution of the Empire of Morocco.
Congratulations, Sultan Kendon Bey.
Thank you, Justice Dominique Hill.
All right. What do we learn? Well, the previous Sultan was impeached, and according to the Constitution, we have to replace the Sultan through a special election, and now the new Sultan is Kendon Bey. So congratulations to good brother Kendon Bey, Sultan of the Empire of Morocco. Now, for more, you can go to the website, all right? Go to Empire of Morocco Constitution, you scroll down, and you'll see Kendon Bey on the page, okay? Just a moment. And there he is, all right? There's the new Sultan of the Empire of Morocco, all right? So congratulations to Kendon Bey. He was elected by the Moroccan nationals. So who can vote for a Sultan? Only Moroccans who's pledged their allegiance to the Constitution of the Empire of Morocco. That must be understood. Only Moroccan nationals. Okay? All right, so congratulations to good brother Kendon Bey. He is now the Sultan of the Empire of Morocco. So what does it say at the top right here? Nova?
Kendon Bey, the second Sultan of the Empire of Morocco since 1956. The head of state took his oath on November 11, 2025. I, Kendon Bey, do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of the Sultan of the Empire of Morocco and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Empire of Morocco.
All right, so there's the new Sultan, all right, which will take over the term, the 7-year term. There's about 5.5 years left on the original term from the first Sultan, all right? So now we're on our second Sultan, Kendon Bey, the second Sultan of the Empire of Morocco since 1956, all right? All right. Now, what do I have up here? We were talking about taxes, right? Today we talked about decolonization. On the Charter of the United Nations, Article 73, it said the Moors have to have a political status. Right after that, you can get into what? Economics. That takes care of the social affairs of the people in Article 73 of the Charter of the United Nations. We also went on the United Nations, what? Responsibility of states for internationally wrongful acts. So anything that the colonists do to infringe against the Moroccans' rights is the responsibility of the United States of America. As an example, have to pay what? Reparations. But reparations come in the form of what? 4 to 5 forms, such as what? Restitution, compensation, satisfaction, and interest. We also learned today that the United States of America owes the Moors what? Taxes. For example, they owe us 2% times every home sale. Whether it's existing home, new home, commercial property, or land sale. In other words, the United States of America owes the Moors billions, if not $1 trillion a year, just in taxes alone, when you add up everything that they owe us annually. It's called residual revenue. And not just reparations from a principal check like it's a lottery ticket. No, we don't want a one-time check. You want that money to come in for your children's 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 children. 100 years from now, 500 years from now, you want your family tree of Moroccans still receiving as beneficiary of the Empire of Morocco. But what I've learned is the Moors are struggling with one word called what? Let's go to the board or the screen. You see, I kept hearing the Moors say, it's all about love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I said, okay, sounds good. But guess what I found out? The Moors are not interested in justice unless it's a one-way street. The Moors are being taught to enforce the Constitution against the colonists, enforce the Constitution against the Europeans. Okay, so you're talking justice, Moors? You think justice is a one-way street? No. You see, the Moors don't want to have this same justice binding on them. It's a two-way street. You see, under the Constitution, Empire Morocco is about justice of what? The three branches. Listen to me. Will never collect taxes if the Moors are not willing to come under the jurisdiction of the executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch of the Empire of Morocco. What do these 1, 2, 3 branches represent? Justice. What else does it represent? Listen, the 3 branches of government represents what? Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. But if the Moors are not willing to come under an organized dual society, then we'll never decolonize. If we don't decolonize, we'll never get reparations or taxation. All because we don't want to have a political tie to the Empire of Morocco and fall under the jurisdiction, sovereignty and jurisdiction of the Empire of Morocco to enforce the justice on behalf of we the people. So the Moors have to choose. Either you're going to come under the laws of the Empire of Morocco, or you're going to come under the laws of the United States of America, but no matter what you choose, there will be 3 branches of government, and one of those branches is the judicial branch. So if the Moors want compensation and reparation and taxation, then you must also understand you're also going to get what? If you violate Moroccan laws, you're also going to get what? Adjudication. So let's all come together, Moors. Let's show the world that we can self-govern each other, that we are willing to abide by the laws of our own Constitution. And after that, start to collect the taxes and take care of the people. It's about we the people. We all have to come together. But we also have to be governed together. I ain't with that. Islam.
Islam.
Islam.